Everybody, welcome back to the Backwoods Life Podcast. I'm glad you're here. Whether you're listening on your drive to work or headed out fishing or hunting or whatever, just riding around, checking trail cameras, man. Thanks for hopping on here and being with us. I'm Michael, and if you've been here before, I'm your host. So, good, bad, or ugly, you got to listen to me. If you're watching on YouTube, you got to look at me. So, good luck with all that. But it's July 20th. Most people are thinking about, fishing or baseball, staying cool. But us serious deer hunters, we know it's one of the most important times of the year. Putting the work in right now can absolutely pay off when opening day rolls around. So today we're going to hop into a few things about summertime and some tactics and some scouting and different stuff like that. Um, and yes, I've started scripting my podcast just a little bit, and the reason I've been doing that is because I got to stay on track. Like I don't like rambling on about this random stuff, but I mean sometimes it's fun, but a lot of times I'm just like, man, shut up and just get to the point. So here we go. Um, One thing I want to just jump right on into it. Why does this time of the year matter? Like it's just like I said, it's July 20th. We did get some rain today, which was much needed. Thank goodness we got this little tropical stuff out in the Gulf that's kind of feeding up towards us, getting us a little bit of rain, but much needed. And our food plots are doing great. So hopefully the antler king will keep growing and putting on some antlers right now. So that's what July really means to me. It's like we're starting to really see what these deer are gonna be looking like come fall. Like our spy point cameras are popping off every night, and I think I woke up this morning to like 2,000 pictures. So that's an awesome thing, but that's a lot to go through, a lot of recon to do. But it is what it is. It's part of it. But I see one mistake that every year I see people. You wait too late. You wait till September to start thinking about deer season, and then your mature deer have often changed their patterns already several times. And this time of year, like July, is just different. Most of the bucks are still living relatively relaxed. They just kind of chill. You'll see them in fields in the middle of the day, popping up on camera in the daylight. Which, as we know, transitioning into fall, that changes. But most bucks are still living really close to their home areas right now. They're grouped up. Food is abundant. Like I said, with green forage that we got food plots, we got feeders down here where it's legal. Um, Deer have a lot of food right now. Everything's just abundant. Got the more rain we get, the more food they get. Nobody's messed with them. There's no pressure, and they're spending a lot of time in their bachelor groups. Their antlers are growing fast, and most important, they're very predictable right now. And that's going to change when the velvet starts coming off. If you've hunted before and you've done your scouting, when that velvet comes off, they become totally different animals. So the predictability right now is exactly what we're trying to take advantage of. Now, does that mean the buck you find today will still be in the same bean field on opening morning or peanut field or woodlot? Probably not. Um, but learning where he spends his summertime tells you something really, really valuable about his home range. He's right now in his preferred bedding area, and his travel routes are likely to continue to be the same thing. But we're building a puzzle, and every little piece of the puzzle we build this time of year is another piece to help us be successful in the fall. So going into the next part, scouting wise, uh, this time of year, if you have open areas, you have fields, you have high ground that you can glass down, you have power lines, you have gas lines, you have anywhere you can scout from a distance. I'm a big fan of glassing more and walking less, because one of my favorite tactics going through the woods is just sitting there getting your pair of binoculars, get you a spot and scope if you got distances that far, and just look, figure out a safe distance to be away from roads and down your field edges, and just watch where you can observe from a distance. Use those last 30 minutes or so before dark, and that's usually when the bigger, especially more mature deer, they're usually the last ones to come into them fields. But this time of the year, they're still doing it in the daytime. So what you'll learn from that is which fields they prefer the most, what time they're showing up, because they're pretty patternable right now, and the weather has a lot to do with it. You get a little afternoon thunder shower, afternoon rain shower, and it cools down. They may move a little bit earlier, but just on a normal average day, they're going to do the same thing roughly around the same time. But you're gathering information right now without putting your scent all over the property. Yeah, we still got to ride around. We still got to check trail cameras and food plots, and we got to do the things in the woods. But that's a huge advantage right now, that you don't have to get in there and look at those spots yet. You can still glass from a distance and see those deer in the daytime. but every unnecessary trip in those woods can educate your deer. I'm also a believer though, if you do it enough, they do get used to it. That's a whole another scenario. But and especially around agriculture, because deer are used to farm equipment and maybe people riding around and you're checking on equipment or crops or irrigation or stuff like that. So those variables have something to do with it. But sometimes the smartest scouting is a scout that you don't ever know you were there. You walk right up to the field edge, you glass at that far corner. That deer doesn't know you're anywhere in the world. You can slip out, never educate them at all, no pressure. So something I hit on a little bit a few seconds ago was trail cameras. Trail cameras can be an incredible tool if you use them right. But the biggest mistake is, especially for the non-cellular cameras, people check them too often. You're going in there, checking memory cards all the time. If you got, cameras overlooking somewhere, you got a feeder or whatever, or your field edges, try running your cell cameras. If you've got good service, you've got signal, and nowadays all the trail cameras, and like I said, we run Spy Point. Many of them are able to uh, pick up on different cell towers and different cell signals. Man, I just had a little power flicker from this storm, so I think it got me a little messed up. There we go. But again, if you're, man, there we go again. Wow. Welcome to technology, y'all. Yeah, like I said, we had a few storms from this little thing in the Gulf rolling through. I guess it got electricity a little bouncing around. But anyway, what I was saying is, going back to scouting from a distance and using your trail cameras, think about your camera angles. Like I said, deer aren't honing in tight on maybe a certain food spot. Maybe they're walking down a field edge. So get those cameras angled where you can see down a road or out several rows of beans or peanuts or whatever is in the field that you can see a long ways in, because you never know. You just catch those deer in the distance, and that could be all you need to know that one big buck's in that area. Then you can kind of hone in and do some more scouting on him. Um, Again, and try trails as well. Try trails coming to and from fields, especially standing corn. Like a deer love to stay in that standing corn a lot, but they will go in those oak bottoms or swamp bottoms or whatever when it gets hotter and move in and out. So if you find a heavy trail, definitely put cameras on that, and you can see a lot this time of the year. But you'll learn so much more about them than just getting another picture of a deer just standing there. But you can actually hone in on those trails. Another thing this time of year, which is kind of hard to do because everything's so green and so thick, is scouting without getting in their bedding area. Something I tell people all the time: you don't have to walk into every bedding area to know where the deer are bedding. You can use maps, you can use aerial photos, you can use topography. What I like to look for is thick bottoms that you can see. This time of the year, the deer are going to be in the cooler spots, especially on those really hot days. They're going to bed on these ridges, or they're going to get down in those thick creek bottoms and get in the shade and get close to water. But they're not going to be too far from those fields. Another thing, doing scouting this time of year for later is your young clear cuts, and good Lord knows there's a bunch over around this area this year. In the last couple of years after these hurricanes, a lot of trees have been cut. So there's some really, really thick cutovers out there now, some replanted pines that are growing up. For you guys in the Midwest and stuff, I mean, obviously your CRP fields are something that they're really going to target and they're going to bed in. But this time of year, I like to look around those swamp edges, those cooler areas, shady spots, anywhere there's a little bit of water, because those deer are going to walk those edges. They're going to stay in those bottoms. And they're just going to stay cool because they want less stress on their body as possible, because they're trying to grow antlers, grow their body, beef up. Next thing you know, they're going to be shedding that velvet and making rubs and getting ready for the rut. And that's a whole nother podcast and we'll do down the road. But this time of the year, check on those shady spots, man. They're like us. They just want to go out there and relax, have a good time this time of year, and not do a whole lot. So, then you got to ask yourself a few questions close to these bedding areas. What's the nearest quality food source? So if it's off the edge of a bean field or peanut field or cornfield, and deer will walk a long ways this time of the year too. They'll travel, I've seen some places they're walking a mile from where they're bedding to where they're feeding. That's a whole other, variable, but they will do that. So you just need to concentrate on exactly what they're wanting to eat this time of the year, and how you can get it, how you can get them going to it. You don't need to, like I said, don't go right in their bedroom. That's not good this time of the year. I mean, they're still deer. You still can educate them, but you can definitely start and identify them right now. So here's some things that you may not know about summer whitetails. So that's one thing I was doing some research on and thinking through today was, What are some things that for this time of the year people just really don't may not even think about? Um, Bachelor groups. For I would say almost with 90% certainty, bachelor groups are just that. They're bachelor groups temporarily. They're not gonna stick together. That's what's unfortunate though is like on a lot of our cameras we run, you have 4 or 5 bucks running together right now. They might be some really nice bucks, but they're not all going to get along. When the velvet comes off, the testosterone rises, they're going to change. They're going to hate each other. They're going to fight over that territory, and they're not all going to be there. It's simple put. They're not going to like each other. They're not going to stay around. They're just going to fight, and that's good and bad. It's good because the dominant buck may stay right there. The bad is he might not be the biggest one in the bunch. So it's not the size of the dog in the fight, the size of the fighting dog. In this case, the buck. So that's just something to think about too. That buck you've been watching come November, he may not even be on your property. Unfortunately, that's just where they are. Another interesting fact is a buck's antlers can grow close to an inch a day during the peak growth. So, with that being said, every good food source, every protein rich browse plant, every agricultural crop, everything is fueling one of the fastest examples of bone growing in the animal kingdom. That's why nutrition is very important during the summer. That's why these deer are eating all hours of the day. That's why you see them in the fields in 90 degrees and out there eating because they're growing and their antlers are growing, and hopefully they're going to keep growing. But right now, this time of the year, this is the peak growing time for them. Some of them are farther along than others, especially based off our cameras. Some are just getting going good, and some look like they could be done any day now. And that's just depending on when they shed their antlers. So, with that being said, talking about antlers, velvet's actually growing living tissue. It's full of blood vessels and nerves, and the deer are very, very protective of them this time of the year too. Because if they knock off a tine or bump one of those antlers hard enough, they can bleed. They can bleed to death possibly. So there's some lot going on there that um, science just tries to let us know about, but you don't comprehend because by the time we hunt these things in the fall, we got bone growing outside the top of their head. But this time of the year, it's just full of blood. So if you go out there looking at some fields at night with your thermal or whatever, where it's legal, of course, you can see these antlers. I was going to say that earlier. I didn't don't know the legalities depending on what state you're in. But if you've got a thermal drone or thermal scope or thermal monocular, obviously do not do it with a loaded weapon. Not going to turn out good for you. But um, you can go in those fields and you can actually scout and see those bucks this time of the year because you can see those antlers glowing like a light bulb. So, more random facts, right quick. When the antler finish growing, blood flow stops, velvet dries up, and the bucks begin rubbing it off. That's where you see all these early season rubs. Now, the early season rubs are just that. They're early when they're rubbing their velvet off of the antlers. Some of it's territorial, but more of it's just, hey, I'm trying to get this crap off my antlers, trying to get it out of the way so I can go do my thing. My testosterone's rising up. I'm trying to look for a doe now. I just got to get this velvet off so if somebody comes at me, I can just roll with it and tie up with them. But that's your early season rubs. Um, Also, whitetails spend a pile of time grooming during the summer. I never thought about that. They're dealing with ticks, flies, mosquitoes, and heat, which I despise all of those things, and probably in that order. So, if you ever watched your trail camera footage, you've probably seen a deer licking, scratching. They twitch a lot because they got flies biting them, especially horse flies down here, yellow flies. They stomp. They're constantly flicking their ears and tails, trying to keep these freaking bugs away. I don't blame them. I don't see how they do it and staying outside in this mess. But anyway, I'm glad they do. But it's crazy just watching them like I have, glassing them, and seeing how actually terrible the conditions are in 100 degrees outside, and they got bugs all over them. So that's crazy. Um, One more thing I was going to hit on again was that their movement is influenced by temperature. So, like I said, those rainstorms that come through, that can drop the temperature down 10, 15 degrees sometimes, and that's going to get those guys and girls moving. They'll cloud cover, and I do love to sit and watch a field on a rainy day, like a rainy afternoon or lazy little shower or whatever. You'll see a lot of deer that way, especially coming out in those fields. In the mornings, you can catch them out there first thing early. but they usually aren't in fields a whole lot where we are anyway, early in the mornings. They've already kind of done their thing, gone out there at night, slipped out of there, heading back to that bedding area to lay up for the sun to come up and get hotter. So, um, food sources are king this time of the year for sure. Soybeans, peanuts, clover, a lot of good summertime clovers out there to grow. Peas, of course, just browse. I mean, you can be amazed at how much you can go through the woods, mow some thickets, mow some areas, mow some edges, and fertilize, and deer will just graze all over those areas. So that's a really good tool. A buddy of mine used to have a small piece of property here in Georgia, and that's what he would do. He would literally go in there and mow the edges of some briar thickets and fertilize it, and deer would come and eat that green growth coming back in. He'd see a lot of good deer that way. I actually did that the other day on a piece of our property. I went in, just wanted to make some shooting lanes so I could see in this fall in a big pine plantation that hadn't been burned or anything. So I went in, I mowed some gosh awful thick stuff and cleared it out. And sure enough, like the first picture I got in there was a really nice buck coming back through there. So I opened them up some areas to walk, and also they'll come back in there and browse around on that stuff. So that was pretty cool to see, and I'm excited about hunting that spot this fall. But grapes and stuff like that. I have seen a lot of green grapes already this year. Just wild grapes. We call them muscadines or whatever they are down here. And deer love those things. They'll start getting ripe here before too long. They'll eat those. I mean, I've actually bow hunted on grapevines early season with a little bit of success. Seen a lot of deer. So that's another little tip if you can find those growing. They usually grow up pretty high in trees, so you just kind of have to look around on the ground to see if you can find them. But every property is different. Some have this, some have that. You just want to spend time identifying the highest quality food sources on your property right now. Like I said, they could be just browse, it could be fields, it could be grapes, it could be well, persimmons are coming. They're usually a little bit closer to September before we see those get ripe, but their food sources change a lot. And they also change, they might not be in the same place from year to year. Like this piece of property may have um, a good food source in July that's not there in November, and those same trees or vines may not have crops every year. So you just got to kind of see where it alternates through. And they're also got to remember that all this stuff's going to change by November. And then, today is going to be 100% different. But today is you're scouting for November to take inventory, and you're also seeing where those travel areas and bedding areas are. So they're going to move around, they're going to switch around, but if you stay on top of them, you can follow the deer where they go. So you can see, where the deer are coming from, where they're entering these fields or thicket edges, or coming from those bedding areas, where they're crossing these power lines or anything like that. Any area you got that you can scout and you can take a look what direction they're coming from. You can see which direction they're coming into your camera. That may be they're primarily coming in from the right or coming in from the left, straight away, whatever, walking right behind the camera. Those things help out. You can also see that when you're glassing these fields to see if that buck comes in that same spot in that field every day, or if he's alternating from one side to another, depending on the wind or the weather, who knows? And then what time are the mature bucks moving? Right now, most of mine are moving in the dark. So there's not a whole lot of daylight stuff. I will say I got a really nice buck last night, and he was in a food plot in the open area at night, and then I got one picture of him after daylight, and he was in the pine thicket, not too far from there. But he did cover a pretty good little bit of ground. But that's interesting to see him moving inside the woods, early in the morning at daylight, while at night he was out there feeding in that food plot. So um, just these little pieces of the puzzle may help me early in the season. Things like that you can put in your Rolodex in your brain there to pull out and say, okay, well, this deer was doing this on this day. And my buddy Rick, that I hunt with, he's a trail camera guru. Like he knows all the deer. He has them all named and he knows where they're at. But he's shown me a few deer that's like, this deer is going to show up on this camera in the next few days. And sure enough, they did. I was just like, dude, you are really studying these things. So that's pretty awesome. I just want to know where he's going to be on opening day so I can be there. So thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. Keep that data coming, buddy. Um, and before we wrap up, let's run through like some of the biggest summer mistakes, I think. Uh, like I said earlier, checking cameras way too often. You're just going in, you're bumping deer, you're spreading your scent. You're walking too much of your property just because you can, because you don't think, hey, they'll be fine by deer season. And they probably will, most of them, but you never know. That one old 6, 7 year old deer, you go through his bedding area one time, he may be like, you know what, I played this game before, I'm going to move somewhere else. And you may just push him right over there for your neighbor to have, because he may be bedding on both sides. You never know. I think a lot of people waiting to do the work in the woods too late. They're too close to deer season. They go in there and start cutting, shooting lanes and doing all that. I still think you can get away with it this time of the year. But I wouldn't wait too much later. I mean, don't go in there a week before opening day and start mowing and bush hogging and building deer stands. I mean, I just not a good idea. But hey, you can do it if you want to. Hopefully, you're not too far from me and you bump your deer on my place. Another mistake is ignoring access routes. I'm big on trying to get to hunting spots the least intrusive way possible and trying to slip in where I can be undetected. Now that's hard sometimes. If you find a really good spot, sometimes you just got to get there how you can. But you can use this time of the year to clear some lanes and clear walking routes that you can get in and out of without really blowing things out of the woods. And hopefully that'll help you come, fall getting in and out. Um, Hang new sets and stuff this time of the year. I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's a good idea. I've got to do some of that myself, but it's just so daggum hot. You don't really want to do it. So it's just get up early and try to get in there without messing it up too bad. Again, you got time for the deer to recover from stuff like that. And always remember, even though it's summertime, don't get attached to one deer, because if you start watching this guy, oh, I got this guy, I'm going to go, hunt this deer this year. Man, he may disappear. He may shift his range. That may just be his summer pattern. He may have a fall pattern that he's not even on your property. And the neighbor may get him opening day. That's just the way it is. I mean, good for your neighbor. Cheer him on. Like, that's what hunting's about. So instead of focusing on one deer, focus on understanding how mature bucks use your property. Because I guarantee you, if one mature buck's doing it this way, another one will come along and he may be one off your neighbors because he's doing things the wrong way, push him onto you. The next thing you know, you got a big deer shows up. So just put all these things in the mental note there for this time of the year and kind of wrap things up. Remember, July isn't about watching bucks grow. It's about gathering information while the deer are still relatively predictable. So be smart when you scout. Keep your pressure low. Use your optics more than you do walk and going through the woods. But if you do go through the woods, wear your snake boots, especially in the South. Pay attention to food. Watch the weather, because that's another key to have, especially in bow season, like down here. If it's warm as it is most early bow season, just continuation of summertime. If you get a cold snap, you need to kind of know what those deer have done historically. When that weather changes or you get that shower that comes through, cools it down, you can able to slip in there and stand. So just that way you've done your homework and you know what to do when that time comes. Start building you a plan that'll hopefully put you in the right tree when the season finally gets here. And before you know it, the velvet will be shedding. Bow season will be right here, no matter how hot or cold it is. And all this summer work will either pay off or you wish you started earlier. So appreciate you all listening to another episode of Backwoods Life Podcast. If you've enjoyed the episode, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this at. Leave me a review. Share this episode. Send it to some of your hunting buddies, whatever. Anybody that you think can get some resources out of this. Send it to them, and we're just going to count down the days until deer season. So y'all be safe out there. Enjoy the outdoors, and we'll catch you soon right here on Backwoods Life Podcast.